And the bottom right in the blue, looking to do as well as his teammate did for Dragon Kites of Gaming, Jieshi.
And up here on the top left-hand side of the map, apparently got Rotterdam's hype around him, and something that I could definitely use right now, it is coffee.
Come on, Fear Dragon. It's like 6:30 in the morning where you are. Like, that's normal person hours. You're fine.
Dude, I was actually so sad because my gym changed their hours at some point, and I wasn't aware of this. Sometime between like last year's DreamHack season and this year's, it used to be open at 2 in the morning, and it was not. So I woke up a good bit earlier, went to the gym, and then they were just closed. I'm like, oh, okay. So I've been up since 2 in the morning. I'm having a good time. But honestly, you know what? Time really does earnestly and honestly fly when we're watching some fun StarCraft, and this is my favorite matchup to watch as well. So I'm not complaining.
You know what, Ravi? Time flies when I'm hanging out with you. So we got that little bonus there as Reaper pops out. Gonna be Reactor behind that factory as well. So Coffee taking a page out of Game 3 of last. I mean, I guess this makes sense. Dragon Scales was map 3 last time, so I guess this is what Chinese Terrans do on Dragon Scales. Reaper, double gas factory, move on from there.
Yeah, I don't hate it. It's a solid kind of opening. I'm always very curious when we get to, I feel like the non-Korean and non-European regions are a little bit less consistent about whether or not the Adept actually gets out to scout. I feel like usually the European, Korean regions and stuff, it's like, oh, you get the second Adept out and you get that first Adept to get across the map and you get the scouting information and everything. It feels like in North America and sometimes in like the Asia regions, it doesn't always get to happen, and sometimes the Protoss player ends up playing a little bit more in the dark, but he's getting up the second Adept, and like you were just kind of pointing out over there, there is this Stargate on the way here for Jieshi as well, which should provide some additional vision for him.
Yeah, I'm torn about this, right? Because on the one hand, especially going Phoenix first here is really nice. It means that against a lot of tech-heavy openings, well, actually the Hellion's going to get 2 probes. Adept should leave. Oh, no, they're not going to get the Reaper. At least not at first, but 2 probes go down. Hellion falls. Not the best, but I mean, you can survive. There we go. Reaper's dead. Again, I'm torn about this because on the one hand, a couple Phoenix against a Widowmine drop, against a Hellion drop, anything like that, fantastic. But if we see this move into just the heavy Marine pressure that we saw, but again, this is Reactor and Marines. If we see this move into a Marine-focused Cyclone, Viking type of timing, which is what we see Coffee doing, what are the Phoenix going to do against this? There's just going to be too much anti-air. And there we go. Phoenix already takes damage early. Normally that'd be fine. Like, okay, well, you know, I took some damage. I'm going to heal back up. It's going to be whatever. In this game, you need every little bit of HP, every little bit of energy possible to make sure you hold on against the attack.
Yeah, I think usually we'll try and see Protoss players going for a really fast tech up into, say, like Colossus or something to help deal with that stuff. But you're definitely right. It can get very, very dicey, and the Phoenix can do all that they want to do about like trying to buffer versus the Vikings and stuff, but if you just don't have a solid gateway base to actually buffer against things, it's pretty tough. You can see the timing of things as well. Robotics facility is finished up now, but the army is actually getting ready to move out onto the map, and it already finds 2 of the 3 Phoenix. This is not a good start.
Is it fair to say that Jieshi's dead? Like, I don't want to say that. Like, the supplies are equal, but what's there on the ground? It's 3 Adepts and Stalker. There's an Immortal on the way, but it's a ways out, and there's 2 Cyclones here, and they're just it's gonna be another. Oh, he doesn't drop the scan, but
yeah,
at least good news here. There's no third base. He's not gonna lose 450 minerals on something that he's never gonna keep alive. So, silver linings.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna say it's very likely he may die over here, but shield battery overcharge is a hell of a drug if you can get that up.
What shield battery overcharge for your dragon? There isn't one there. It's actually, you know what? Hey, you know, we gotta give him a little bit of credit here. Those Adepts did a great job. So Jieshi actually doesn't die. The Cyclones, though, they have all taken pretty much 0 damage. So, okay, he's actually not. I thought we were gonna see. I thought there was a bunch more in the rally than what we had, but instead, moving up and that's an Immortal. So you're not really gonna want to run face first into that.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like the problems that you'll run into where all the Cyclones and stuff were able to survive, and Yes, Coffee's at a little bit of a worker disadvantage and everything, but actually, you know what? I thought he would be able to continue trying to deny the third base location with the Cyclones and stuff, but I can understand why he wants to evacuate out of there. The Phoenix count is starting to grow. You're likely just going to get lifted up and kind of picked off and everything. So, yeah, you know what? Honestly, all things considered, not the worst spot here for Jieshi.
I think given everything that happened, it's going to be more dead. Oh, jeez, man. That's like 5 dead Phoenix. 4 dead Phoenix this game. They have found no value at all. This just feels so bad. But you're right. This was probably the best possible hold that Jieshi could have made, given the fact that he'd lost 2 or 3 Phoenix leading up to that point. But Coffee, we wondered why he wasn't reinforcing and really committing to this, because it felt like he could have. Well, it's because his third base is done. Like, he is, yes, he's down 11 workers, but he does have that third base. That is going to make up for a lot of this differential. And current graph is still going to say that, yeah, Jieshi's in a pretty good spot. But, I mean, let me introduce you to the power of mules. That's not going to be like that for all that much longer.
No, mules are a hell of a drug for a Terran economy for sure. But I guess speaking of drugs, it does also like beg the question of like, okay, well, when's the next bit of aggression and stuff that Coffee can really put on? And you have to remember that combat shields and stim are still going to be a ways away. So you can do little bits of pokes and prods and stuff with the Cyclones, try and pick off maybe some more of the Phoenix and everything. But this is kind of the little window of opportunity where it'd be nice if Jieshi had more Phoenix out of the map, but he can do little pickoffs like that. Okay. Loses one of the Phoenix, and that unfortunately means he doesn't have any firepower here whatsoever until the Stalkers arrive, actually, and then he's able to pick off one of the Cyclones. Loses a Phoenix in the process. Okay, well,
I don't hate this. This is actually look what we get. Look at what Coffee has right now. What's the harass on the other? Oh, Liberator. Okay, something like that. I was gonna say he's got 2 Colossus. He's got a couple Stalkers here. I guess losing the Phoenix mean that they're just too many tanks. But it's looking surprisingly playable out of this game state, considering how much Jieshi has lost early on. I think you're right. Yeah. Again, it's pretty playable.
I don't think Jieshi is like actually dead or anything in this game, but I do think it's a rough spot having your Phoenix count reset that much. Phoenix are one of those interesting units where they do build really, really fast and stuff, so you can kind of replenish them quickly, but they are really expensive. You look at Jieshi's army and yeah, the Colossus are intimidating units, but you can see there's just not that much of a gateway buffer, even as he's had to remake a handful of the Phoenix here and there. He hasn't really been able to put on any pressure on the other side of the map, which is another thing that you're kind of hoping to do with the Phoenix, is actually be able to maybe get a couple of pickoffs here and there. Picking off the Raven was nice, but he has just been the defender this entire time. So he can shut down this, I think, little small force that does this push out here. But as soon as Coffee goes for his big attack, I think that's going to be the big moment of truth. And not being able to lift up many of the tanks and stuff with additional Phoenix, not having a lot of the gateway buffer, that's what scares me. But if Jieshi can survive through that, I think he's actually still okay in this game.
Yeah, good news for Jieshi as well. He does have charge. So yeah, you don't have a massive Phoenix count. I mean, you could. You've lost 6, you still have 3. So 9 Phoenix would be great to have right now. Even still, the Zealots, you can get them in a good flank. They can deal with those tanks to some extent. 3 Colossus, a lot of the Marines will fall down, but it's the same problem we had. And again, Jieshi did win that game, but it's the same problem we had in Jieshi Oliveira game 2. You're building Archons, and Ghosts are already on the way, and that means Archons, they aren't really much more than just a bunch of balloons.
Yeah, well, I guess optimistically, the Archons soak up some of the EMPs, so that the Zealots maybe have a little bit more shields if they don't all get hit by it. But yeah, it is going to definitely be a bit tough. But hey, we had disruptors and everything being added on, so I don't hate this that much for Jieshi. Like, it's not like, oh, if you have Archons, like it's only a bad thing. I think it still just force a reaction from your opponent and stuff.
It's more the issue I take with it more is that you're building them at home. Like, build Archons if you're about to take a fight. All right, that makes sense. Otherwise, it's 300 gas that you really would rather have into your upgrades or into a second Robo Quicker or into more disruptors or something like that. And you know what? I giving Jieshi some credit here. Getting a single Archon, it's not the end of the world. And maybe he did think that Coffee was about to move out, as he is right now. And here's the problem: Zealots on the left side, they can do a lot. They cannot help in this fight right now, and you do need a significant Zealot count to make this fight happen. You know, do not take this fight. Even with 4 Colossus, you don't want to take this fight. That tank count is, you can't fight into it.
Yeah, I don't think he needs to attack forward though, right? He's got this choke point he's going to be able to defend through. Disruptor fires a shot, but it is in range of the tanks, unfortunately. Oh man, actually had an opportunity to maybe soften up some of those tanks a little bit more, and another disruptor is going to get softened out. No shield battery to fall back to either right now, it feels like, for that disruptor. But I mean, he's able to hold this line, and that's actually really, really important, because like you were saying, the Zealot run-bys and stuff are also just going to keep his coffee a bit occupied while Jieshi gets the max out. He was down a bit as the army supply. He's actually catching a bit back up. Even if he is losing some important stuff over here, don't get me wrong, it's not great, but he is actually replenishing a lot of his army supply and setting up a 6 around.
Oh, this is massive, but the Zealots, they're going to get on top. Tanks get lifted here, but he's into a choke. He said he was going to have it, but yeah, no, it works against both sides. Disruptors are going to do what they can, but now Liberators, they siege up everything. These Colossus are just going down. EMPs blanket everything. And it's a bunch of Colossus, a Protoss army that runs just pell-mell into this choke. Jieshi cannot take this fight. Although Colossus stays alive a little bit longer than we expected, but there we go. The Vikings are going to land. Disruptor forces them back up again, but now the entire army's dead. One Disruptor on the way at a time is not going to be enough. And honestly, if Jieshi had been able to knock those rocks down 5 minutes ago, or if he'd been able to maybe take a bit different of a fight, or even if all 3 jaws of that attack had moved in, the Zealots came in from the right, the army came from the bottom, but he had another set of Zealots that were a little bit late. If any of those things happened, maybe he'd take that fight, but instead, the tanks, the EPs, they just blanketed the tech of that army, and now, well, it is really all just coffee ending this game. Archons are here, sure, and that might delay things just a little bit because the Ghosts don't have the energy for the EMPs, but, I mean, just look at the supply right now.
Yeah, Coffee's got a pretty firm hold on this game after that fight, and it definitely looked like Jieshi was maybe going to be able to set up for something pretty sick there, but in the end, yeah, just ends up not quite being enough. So sick attack there from Coffee, and it's very important to note that during that whole fight, he was also managing to hold off against the Zealot run-by attack. And yeah, even the important thing here is that Jieshi, even if he manages to defend somehow, he's still going to be down not only a good bit of army supply, but he also lost his 4th base. The other location, he did reestablish another nexus. That is a very tough base to defend if he ends up losing this much ground.
Yeah, at this point, it doesn't really matter because this 10 army supply Stalkers, they blink on top, and Jieshi, I mean, he's fighting hard. He's doing his best, but this feels
it's
like
61 versus 8 army supply. Yeah.
He's like, you know what? Let me think about what's going to happen in game 2 because yeah. That game was over a little bit ago, but hey, maybe he's got an idea. Maybe that's a good time to just kind of sit there like, yeah, well, I'll warp in units a little bit. Maybe I can try to mess with the mental of my opponent. Just sit there. Yeah, I don't know. You've played a game where you've so clearly won, and your opponent's like, no, I'm just going to sit here. I'm not dead. Make me leave. And then, it's a little tilt-inducing sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. But either way, that is going to be a kind of interesting game there. I feel like Jieshi, again, like we talked a lot about how the Phoenix is getting picked off. Obviously, that's like a horrendous situation usually when you're going for those kind of Phoenix openings, but he managed to still mount a pretty solid defense there, even with the and it's a little bit tricky because you say, like, you look at that defense and you say, there's no shield battery. It's because the shield battery is still coming up, but the reason why that army in that early game defense also does well is because the shield battery is being made and it doesn't actually end up coming up. It's because Coffee is target firing it down. But because Coffee is attacking the shield battery, the Immortal and all the Adepts and everything else are just attacking the army without really taking any damage. So it's like all these little weird skirmishes. Either way, Jieshi ends up coming out okay and puts up a really good fight that game. Yes, he doesn't end up winning the game, but I mean, this really did look like a pretty close series so far.
It did. I think there were, and despite, again, losing all those Phoenix, losing all that map control, which is really not what you want, despite all of that, I think if Jieshi had gotten the rocks down outside of his 3rd, he had time, right? That Terran push happened 2 or 3 minutes after everything else. Like after he took the base, he had the room to knock those rocks down. Or even on that 6th round, you were talking about, we said this in the game, but he had the big fight coming in from the bottom. He had the army, the Zealots coming in from the left side. And then he had Zealots coming from the right side as well, but they were very delayed. So if you, and it's so it's very easy to just have your kind of your surround mistimed, but I think if he had been able to just go and actually fully pull the trigger on that surround, I mean, that would have been fairly good for him. Instead, of course, it didn't work out. Coffee takes the 1-0, and let's see now whether Jieshi has what it takes to bring us to game 3. As we said in the bottom left, he is in the blue. He held on when it did not feel like there was much to hold on for. Let's see if he can turn that hold into a victory. Jieshi.
And his opponent on the other side of the map, we have our red Terran player. Currently sitting up 1-0. He is Coffee. All right. Well, yeah. Interesting start over here. We have, I want to go back to, actually it was Firefly versus Oliveira that we last saw. It was, sorry, I almost mixed it up. Firefly was scouting around for proxies in game number 3, but last game, yeah, Jieshi really didn't go for very much scouting information at all. He got out those early adepts, didn't really scout around for proxies or anything, and instead was just busy dealing with the Reapers. Didn't get any scouting information really until the Phoenix came out. So I actually don't hate this kind of move here from Coffee.
No, and this isn't incredibly committed anyways. It's first barracks across the map. It's for a single Reaper. He might get 2. But it does mean that Jieshi certainly will be forced to get a Zealot if he, at the very least, maybe some probe damage. It's an early scout. It means Jieshi does have to play just a little bit safer. So for now, okay, well, I love this bunker positioning, by the way. Normally you're going to put it behind the mineral line.
Ooh.
Right? And that means that, okay, you deny mining a little bit, but by putting it up here, it actually means that depending on where you put the shield battery can actually be in range of the Reaper. And then that means that, hey, it is very, very hard to actually go and defend this. I mean, the shield battery is necessary, but for now, Reaper in the main, it's already gotten 2 probes. Like, this is a pretty rough start for Jieshi. 3 probes go down. He's going to get a 4th. Yeah.
And I mean, this is already big. The Reaper grenade even denies the Stalker from getting additional damage to the Reaper. SCV loads into the bunker as well. And yes, the shield battery will finish on up, but that does not make this any less annoying to deal with. As, yeah, barracks can just lift up at this point. Like, this has already done more damage than it really needed to. This has already done more than enough, and he's continuing to get more.
For now, there are Stalkers on the map. Reaper got the second Reaper even got a probe kill. Yeah, there are multiple Stalkers on the map, and eventually we will see this go down. The bunker, is not in range of the shield battery. But now, Fear Dragon, there's a second problem. Look at where the shield battery is. It's not sitting right back up against the Nexus because it would have been gunned down otherwise. So, a follow-up, any bit of follow-up pressure coming in from Coffee, that's going to be a much more targetable shield battery.
Oh, absolutely. I think that's going to come into effect if we start seeing some of those later game pushes and stuff in like the mid game and whatnot. But even for now, I think he's going to have to first start thinking about like the Hellion follow-ups and stuff like that, because we already have 2 Hellions out, 2 more Hellions on the way. Cloak coming out for Banshees. Oh man. So we're going to see Cloak Banshees yet again today. And this is all again off the back that Coffee did start investing in a lot of this additional tech before getting that extra command center. So this is going to be something that Coffee has to get damage done with. It's not Coffee was able to do a little light pressure and now can just sit back on his economy. He's like, no, he's committing to getting additional damage done. He needs it.
Here, Dragon, look what Coffee's doing here. That Reaper has baited the Stalkers so far out, and now it's 4 Hellions. And yeah, sure, there's a force field in the natural, but 4 Stalkers, they one-shot probes. Shield battery will not keep you alive, so 6 probes go down. A magic number is probably, he's gonna get that one easily. So 9 workers go down. Only 2 Hellions die anyways. The other 2 get out. And yeah, there's an observer. We saw that should mean these Cloaked Banshees are less powerful than they might otherwise be, but that's 9 dead probes on top of the, 5 dead earlier? It's 50, the 6 dead earlier. It is 16 dead probes before the 5-minute mark.
Yeah, so Bam, I was saying that Coffee needs to get damage done. I think he got the damage done. I think he's good. Everything else now is a bonus. Oh, that's really rough. Now, I guess bright side, there's only one Banshee out right now as Cloak finishes on up. There's no shield battery though in the main base, but at least at the natural, if the probes start getting target fire down, he can like run over to the shield battery and not really end up losing too many. Yeah, this is tough.
Oh man, you like the double bait there. Jieshi is like posturing, like, I definitely have an observer coming in right now. Like, be very careful. Hellions there. Oh, nice force field. Gonna get any more? 2 more shots. No, doesn't kill anything. But anyway, the stalker's there posturing, like, oh yes, there's an observer right behind you. Gotta back up, run away. And there wasn't. Like, that Banshee could have easily gotten about 3 or 4 more worker kills before the observer arrived. Instead, Coffee decides to be, you know, rather conservative with it. And it also means now that he's gonna have Banshees with the push. So I don't hate it, but Coffee and Jieshi could probably have the same amount of workers if he decided to really kind of play on the edge.
Yeah, it's a tough spot now for Jieshi, and he may end up looking a little bit silly here because he's in a spot where he had to basically say, all right, either you're going to come try and kill me right now, or you're going to try and do like little bits of harassment continued. And one way or the other, he has to take a risk because he's already fallen so far behind in this game. He took a risk of saying, let me just try and go for a really fast robotics bay. If he doesn't end up getting to the robotics bay, it's just been a massive sunk cost that is definitely not going to be working out. And, well, he's actually taking off quite a few units over here, all things considered.
I mean, look at that. Jieshi, you don't need that many of it. I mean, I guess you do if they're all going to get scanned out. He has 4 observers.
Imagine if he had a second immortal.
I mean, I guess the Banshees are such a problem that you don't want to lose 1 observer and get scanned out, but...
He's going to lose the Robo. Oh, no. He's not even going to get a Colossus up. It's going to have just been a sunk cost of the robotics bay and 4 observers.
Trust me, man. Okay, the next Terran patch, observers are gonna have a self-destruct mode where they do like a nuke's worth of damage, and it's gonna be absolutely worth it. But that's not this mode, and that's not this patch. And the probes now are gonna get pulled. There are bunkers here. Jieshi is very dead. But you know, those 4 observers, they did a lot.